Welcome back wrestling fans, and welcome back to Waynesider, where tonight's Raw left us shaken, not just by the spectacle in the ring, but by the emotions that continue to spill from one of the most complicated families in wrestling history. For years, the bloodline has been defined by dominance. A dynasty carved out of loyalty, intimidation, and unshakable unity. Roman Reigns stood at the center, a figure of power, both feared and respected, holding not just championships but the weight of generations on his shoulders. But beneath the surface, behind those victorious stares and battle cries, there has always been something unspoken. Pressure, expectation, a constant reminder that blood ties can unite, but they can also suffocate. Please like, share and subscribe for more WWE content. On Raw, the tension felt heavier than ever. Each moment with Roman carried not only the presence of a champion but the shadow of a leader who has demanded more than any man could reasonably give. His legacy has been built on compliance, and cracks have been spreading for months. It was not just about championships or victories anymore. It was about trust. And when trust erodes in a family as powerful as the bloodline, the collapse is loud, violent, and unforgettable. The audience could sense it. The silence between entrances, the quick glances backstage, the whispers of alliances no longer as unshakable as they once seemed. These weren't just storylines playing out, they were echoes of real scars in the making. Roman carried himself with the same authority we have always known, yet his eyes betrayed him. They weren't the eyes of a man at peace. They were the eyes of a king whose kingdom no longer saluted him without question. The bloodline has always thrived on intimidation, but intimidation fades when the once loyal begin to see weakness. And weakness was there, hidden but present, lingering in the very fabric of the night. As the show moved forward, Bronson Reed made his presence felt. A powerhouse in his own right, Reed carried the energy of someone who knew that if you stand in front of a crumbling empire, you can either be destroyed by the collapse or you can push it down yourself. The air in the arena shifted. This was no ordinary confrontation. Reed wasn't simply a rival, he was a storm, crashing into a dynasty already battling with its own thunder. At first, it looked like the usual standoff, the kind we've seen countless times before. Roman's aura, Reed's defiance, the crowd torn between shock and anticipation. But the weight of history behind Roman made every movement, every glance, feel heavier. And then it happened, the unthinkable. Halfway through the night, Raw gave us one of its most shocking brawls in recent memory. Roman Reigns and Bronson Reed clashed in a violent eruption that felt less like sport and more like destiny tearing itself apart. The fists flew, bodies crashed into barricades, and suddenly all that silent tension from weeks of unease exploded before our eyes. This wasn't about gold, this wasn't about pride, this was about survival, and Roman Reigns looked, for the first time in years, like a man fighting for his place. The attack wasn't clean, it wasn't orchestrated dominance. It was raw, it was messy, and it showed us that even Roman's empire could bleed. Reed didn't back down, he absorbed punishment, delivered his own, and stood toe-to-toe with the tribal chief in a way that few have dared to. But what truly made this moment resonate wasn't just the brutality of the fight. It was the symbolism. For years, Roman's battles were about reinforcing unity. This one tore unity apart. Allies were hesitant. Some didn't step forward at all. And in hesitation, we saw truth. Backstage whispers say this was no accident. Some in the locker room believe Reed's confrontation was as much about opportunity as it was about timing. That certain members of the bloodline knew this was coming, and perhaps even welcomed it. And that is where the real betrayal begins. Because a family that once stood impenetrable now looks vulnerable, fractured, and at war with itself. Roman's reign has always been about fear, but fear cannot hold forever. The aftermath left Roman standing, but not victorious. Reed may not have toppled the empire yet, but he exposed it. The cracks are no longer hidden. The bloodline's silence is no longer loyalty. It is doubt. For fans watching, this was more than just a Raw main event segment. This was history unfolding, live and unscripted in its emotional weight. We saw the once proud leader of the most dominant family in WWE history question his place in the hierarchy of his own blood. In that brawl, every chair shot and every collision felt like a metaphor for years of resentment. The cousins, the brothers, the family who once bowed their heads now look at Roman and see a man who may no longer command them through respect, but only through fear. And when respect is gone, rebellion is inevitable. That is what Clash in Paris is now about. Not just matches, not just championships, but rebellion. Roman Reigns versus Bronson Reed is no longer just a battle of strength. It is a symbolic war. A moment where either Roman reclaims his throne with the iron fist that has defined his career, or he watches his empire crumble in real time. The bloodline was supposed to be forever. It was supposed to be untouchable. But history tells us that dynasties rarely fall from outside forces. They collapse from within, eaten alive by betrayal, jealousy, and broken trust. This Raw gave us a glimpse into that collapse. And as shocking as the brawl was, the silence after it spoke louder. No celebration, no unity, no proud family standing together. Just doubt, lingering in the air like smoke after a fire. When the dust settles, we may look back at this night as the beginning of the end. A night when Roman Reigns no longer looked untouchable, but instead looked like a man at war with his own blood. And that is the tragedy of the bloodline. That what was built on loyalty now threatens to end in betrayal. That power once used to elevate a family may now be the very thing that tears it apart. Because in the end, wrestling is not just about gold, it is about legacy. And tonight, on Raw, we saw the legacy of the bloodline slip into dangerous territory. Not broken yet, but cracked beyond repair. And perhaps that is the greatest heartbreak of all. Not that Roman fought Bronson Reed, but that in fighting him, he revealed the truth. That blood may bind, but it cannot always heal.